Hi peeps, Tersse back on the old squat box once again. And this conversation is going to be about evolution. Specifically, not just about evolution, but about a particular part of evolution. And that is the part that a lot of creationists find problematic. Right? They believe that when you get a genetic diversification through genes changing, they find it a problem that these genes would change and would always be beneficial. Mutations. In order for evolution to work, all genetic changes through this form of change have to be beneficial. But that's not the case, because if you look at the record of life on the planet, something like 99.9% of all things are dead. Now granted, they didn't all die because of genetic mutation, but this is the problem that fucktarded creationists or intelligent design proponents seem to feel was a big problem, that when you have mutations they cause problems, because a lot of what we see, the genetic malformations we see in the deaths of children, those genetic malformations they tend to be killers. And this is what they don't realise. When it's within a group, a species, yes, those individuals die, mostly at birth. Some can survive birth but don't procreate and don't live on to pass those genetic malformations on to the next generation. But the successful changes, if they are a benefit to that organism, if it makes them stronger, faster, smarter, live a little bit longer, perhaps even just make them more procreative, if for instance they just shag more, if they're more genetically disposed to shag anything in sight, if for instance unlike most mammals and other animals, they don't just have a breeding season but can breed all year round like the human race, then that's definitely a bonus. That's a genetic plus. You're not stuck to just finding a mate over a 3-month period and having to find during that 3-month period the one time when one female or one other female is receptive to being impregnated during the 4-day period in the first week of the month or the 4th week of the month, and therefore you have to round up 100 females and keep them all there and fight off other males until you can smell a female that you can impregnate. If you live within a society like humans where you can procreate all year round, that was probably not the way that we originated, but it was probably a thing that the apes, that we are a member of that family, changed into through some genetic change, some weird script changing in our DNA. I think way back there probably wasn't any kind of ape that could breed all year round. I think all animals probably had a season, a time when they had to group together and mate, but that was our long gone progenitors, our ancestral ancestors, as real evolutionists say, a common ancestor. But now, when it comes down to genetic changes, that happen occasionally. You know, some of them are good and can be kept if they're, you know, an advantageous genetic change, and means that you will breed better, you know, then that will be passed on to your offspring, and someone who, or something, or you know, some other member of your society who doesn't have that gene, because we're talking here about populations, and not all populations are the same. Well, we see that in our own population today. Some people are born who are infertile. Some people are born who, they might be fertile, you know, through the first sort of 20 or 30 years of their life, but then the fertility drops faster than some of the other members of the population. And then they marry when they're 20, they have a couple of kids with, you know, someone that they were married to when they were 20. Then they, you know, get divorced, fall into love, get divorced, and they marry someone else, and then find that they have problems with procreation, because, you know, for some reason they just particularly don't have, you know, fertile seed or fertile eggs at a later time in their life. So even across just the population we see today in the world of humans, we have a diversity of fertility. That's evolution. That's even, we can look at that and see that that's evolution. Some people get fat even though they eat the same amount of food as other people, and perhaps even do the same amount of exercise. Some people pile on the fat and others don't. I wonder why that is. Do you think that's genetic? Or is it just because they're greedy? Is it a thought in their mind that they just, I'm just going to get fat, I'm not going to burn that energy? Or is it something to do with the chemical way that their body burns energy? So yes, even across the population of the earth today, looking at humans, we can see genetic differences within our population. And are some people more disposed to procreate and be able to, you know, give rise to the next generations more so than others? Yes. We see that within the population of the human species today. And yet religious people will probably turn around and say, well, that's just God not blessing you with a child. God didn't bless you, you know what I mean? But I suppose you can go to your church and give them lots of money and ask your pastor to bless you every day in the hope that God will see fit to bless you and give you a child. But I don't really see this happening. What I see is people going to a doctor and asking for medical help. Yes, science, asking for science to help them. Yes, even good Christians don't go and pray at their church. They go and ask a doctor, what's wrong with me, can you fix it? So, evolution? I think it's pretty much proven that evolution is there and a fixed thing, a true thing, a fact. If it wasn't a fact, then you wouldn't have Christians going and asking a doctor to fix them. They would be going to their church. They would be sitting there on their knees praying every day, and then having sex every night, hoping, beyond all hope, that they would get pregnant. But that's not what happens. They go and ask a doctor to test them. And the tests come back and say, you're just infertile. You can't have a child naturally. And you would think that they would say, well, I'm going to go and pray even harder for God to fucking fix me, you know. But no, they don't. They ask the doctor, well, what can I do about it? And the doctor tells them, well, we can give you these injections that might increase your fertility. We can study your biological makeup, when your best chance is to get pregnant, and then you can send a text to your husband and he has to run home from work and fuck you at that time because that's the best time you've got. to get pregnant. And that's what Christian people are doing today. They're not praying in their church for it. They're not fucking asking God to fix them. They're sending texts to their husband to run home now because this is the best time I've got to get pregnant. After all the injections and pills you've had, and you know what I'm saying? That's evolution that's doing that. That's science that's doing that. It's not God. And all these Christians who say, oh, God is the saviour of the human race, he's the lover of God, you know, he's going to, make me get through this. Yeah, he's going to make you get through this because you're going to see a doctor who's using science, reason, chemicals, which we produce in a gigantic science factory somewhere. And bring to you an ampule that the doctor injects you with. It's not to do with God. If you thought God could do it, you wouldn't be asking for that help. You wouldn't be seeing a doctor for those fucking problems. And if science wasn't helping infertile Christians to have kids, we'd probably have less stupid, ignorant, creationists in the world. And I think scientists should start to turn around and say, well, if you believe in God, go to your church. If you believe in science, come to me. But let's be clear about it. Do you believe in your God, or do you believe in science? Well, you believe in God. Well, away and get on your knees and pray. Because the fact is, religious people denigrate doctors, they denigrate science. They tell us it's part of the devil. Well, fuck you. I'm not going to help you to breed more fucking ingrates and stupid fucking fucktarded creationist wankers to denigrate me and my scientific attitude towards the world. Go and get on your knees and pray in front of your priest and see how many kids you have when you've been diagnosed as infertile. Let's see how many times God can solve your problem compared to science, See, this is the thing about evolution. Stupidity isn't an evolutionary method of improving the human race. Religion isn't a way of evolutionary improving the human race. It's a fucktarded way of extracting money from people because they would rather fear the unknown than trying to find out what it is they fear. Within religion, fear itself can be the means to an end, whereas in science, fear is a means to experimentation. It's a means to seek to follow a path of knowledge, information and truth till you find an answer. Evolution, even though we do have some bad mutations, the fact is that in the normal course of things, good mutations build upon other good mutations and lead to a breakthrough in the physical capabilities and mental capabilities of animals to survive the surrounding environment that they live within, and therefore pass on their genes to the future generations. That's what evolution is. Bad mutations will lead to lower numbers of procreation until eventually that branch of the same species dies out because they can't cope with the new environment or a changing environment. That's what evolution is. Change is good. Progress is good. And it's not always intellectual progress, sometimes it's physical progress, sometimes it's a combination of physical and intellectual progress. But basically, evolution is a good change, a good, added benefit from a change in the DNA or the structure of the animal or the plant or whatever, in order to adapt and survive changes. And as long as those changes aren't too quick and too severe, it gives the animal or the plant time for those mutations to accumulate, which give it a beneficial advantage above the others of its own species, and become sometimes a completely new species. Creationists, the fucktards, don't understand this. Tiny incremental changes over long periods of time make for a new species. And the old species that didn't incorporate those changes in their DNA, they became the extinct species, And of course, the reason creationists and religious people don't want to accept that is because basically they think everything was pushed into existence at one time, and they're not supposed to change, they're supposed to remain the same. And that's why they're so perfect in God's eyes, because God made them perfect. But as an atheist, I don't need to see the fact that animals exist on this planet. Some of them haven't changed for thousands of years, some for millions. But I still look at the point of view of the ones that have changed, the ones that have evolved. They're doing better today than any other species on the planet. And the most evolved at the moment is the human race, but that's not to say we're always going to be. All it would take is one cataclysmic meteor the size of New York to hit the planet somewhere, and bang goes the human race. We're gone. We couldn't survive that. Wouldn't be a human being left after about 20 or 30 years. Certainly not after 200 or 300. And then some other species would have the opportunity to fill that gap through evolution. Swanjiva. Isn't life wonderful?